Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fifth class of this advanced English course. Please confirm if you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, teacher.
Thank you, Saoni. And thank you for being here. Um, Although you're sick, you don't feel well, but thank you for being here. And sorry for the delay. I was answering to a patient. You know how this is. Doctor's life sometimes can get a little complicated. So, welcome Camila and welcome Joangel Gomez to tonight's class. So tonight we're going to explain. Tonight we're going to explain our new unit. So I will be doing the majority of the talking tonight. So you are only going to participate in the quote, our quote for tonight, which is pretty simple. And after that, I will be explaining the topic of the night, which is unit number 3. Remember that on the platform we have the review part 2 of the English idioms, and that the practice of this unit number 3, it's already available on the platform. Also, this course is almost over. We have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 more weeks. 4 more weeks. We're talking about 8 classes remaining for this course. So we're almost there. We're almost at the end. So I'm going to start right away. I'm going to share my screen and let's discuss a little bit this quote. Okay? So tonight's quote is from Aristotle. Aristotle. So Aristotle said, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. Aristotle said, pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. Think that for a moment. I'm going to give you 1 minute. And then I'm going to ask you, what do you think about that? Okay, so let's start with Joe Uncle Gomez. Tell me, Joe Uncle, what do you think about this? Joe Uncle, if you're talking to us, your microphone is off. Okay, apparently Joe Uncle is not there. Tell me, Camila, what do you think about this?
Well, when people enjoy their job, they work with more energy and motivation. Um, they pay more attention to what they are doing and try to do their best
Yes.
because
Yes.
they like their work. Okay. They do not give up easily
They don't
when
give up
they have
easily.
problems. Easily,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. They don't
And
give up easily. Okay.
um, they keep learning and improving every day.
Okay. That's true. Thank you, Camila. Tell me, Joangel.
Sorry, teacher, my microphone at the computer don't work. So I think about this. My father every time say, when you work and you like, you never work.
Okay. When you do what you like, it's never work, right?
It's never exactly.
Okay. So, yeah, that's true. Saoni, of course, go ahead.
When you put love into your work, it turns out better and you get along better with your coworkers. Coworkers, compañero de trabajo, ¿verdad?
Co-workers.
Coworkers. Okay.
Yes. So that's it. I agree with everything you said so far. So yes, when we enjoy what we do, when we like what we do, we normally do it better. Okay? If you are a teacher, for instance, you prepare better classes for your students because you love what you do, and you want the others to receive that. They can perceive your love for your craft when you prepare better presentations, when you prepare better explanations, when you think about different dynamics that we can perform or do in class in order to make the classroom feel more more warm, like cozy for the students, more emphatic for them. So when we have this environment, this friendly environment, that's the word. When we create this friendly environment, it is easier for the students to grow, to increase their knowledge, okay, because they feel comfortable in that environment. But if you don't like what you do, you don't prepare well your classes, you don't improve your explanations. If someone doesn't understand something, that's their fault, not yours. So you don't take responsibility for that. Many things, and sometimes you can even create a hostile environment for the students, which makes it even harder for them to learn because they don't feel comfortable in that environment. So many things can change when you love what you do. Sometimes it's hard to love what you do because we go to when we decide to get a career or to specialize in an area, we have these huge expectations about income, how much I am going to earn, how many things I am going to buy with my earnings, with my monthly pay, with my income. But then you get to your job and you realize that it wasn't as you planned. And now you have a difficult or a miserable salary. Your work environment is difficult. You don't get along with your coworkers. And now what you loved to do, you don't love it so much because it is not rewarding you in the way you expect it to be rewarded. So that's when we have to remind ourselves why we chose that career, why we chose that path, why we chose to do that for the rest of our lives. And we have to find a way to understand how we are benefiting others with the work we do, because the others are not responsible for your decisions. Okay, so you chose a career, now you realize that that career is not going to give you what you expected, and you can't become angry towards other people because you don't have what you desire, or because you don't have what you always wanted to have. You have to remember that no one is guilty about your mistakes or your decisions. No one is responsible for your mistakes or your decisions. You are the only people, the only person responsible for those decisions, and you have to take responsibility for that. So we have to find a way to balance that, because sometimes we don't always get what we want, and we have to deal with that too. Okay, guys, with that being said, let's continue. Okay, so our unit number 3 is about making changes. So we have here word power homes. So we have this word power like bright, comfortable, convenient, cramped, dangerous, dark, dingy, expensive, huge, inconvenient, modern, noisy, private, quiet, run down, safe, small, and spacious. So you have to look up the meaning of these words in Spanish, because in our next class I will be asking you the meaning of these words. By the way, these words are also in your practice. So you have to do it right away. So our first topic is about evaluations and comparisons. This is an important topic that we have to understand pretty well. Okay, so let's continue. Here we have our title, right? The Urban Explorer's Guide to Judging and Comparing. So the master the architecture of expressing preferences, judgments, and urban realities. So we normally are going to use this, at least in this context, to compare. Okay, how can we compare in English? We have many ways of comparing or evaluating things. So let's start with the evaluation. Okay, so when we are evaluating, we normally use adjectives in this case. We can evaluate with adjectives. Okay, let's see. We have the problem of excess. When we have too much of something, more than necessary. So we have the structure to plus adjective. So normally when we see to followed by an adjective, is because we have more than necessary. And normally that is a problem. Okay. So every time, or in the majority of the cases, where you see to followed by an adjective is because it's something bad or it's a problem. For example, this apartment is too small. Too, right? Followed by an adjective, small. Here, size is a problem. The street is too noisy. Here, the noise is a problem. The weather is too hot today. Here, the temperature is a problem. The traffic in Santo Domingo is too heavy. Here, the amount of cars that we have on the streets are a problem. So when we see to followed by an adjective, is because we're saying that that element is a problem, or is an excess, or we have more than necessary. Okay, then we have the sweet spot. I use this expression a lot. Americans use it a lot. Sweet spot. It's like the perfect point. Like the when you have two extremes, this is the middle point. Okay? The middle point. So we have here another structure. In this case is adjective again, followed by enough. Adjective followed by enough. Enough means suficiente, right? So we normally use this to say that Whatever it is we are describing, it it is sufficient. It meets our needs. Okay, it is sufficient. We don't need more or less. Right there, it's perfect. It's enough. Okay, so the room is big enough, which means that the size works for me. The street is wide enough, which means that the width of the street works for me. The building isn't quite enough. Here we have a negative structure because sometimes things aren't enough. So in this case, if I say the building isn't quite enough, it's because the noise is too much. So when we use enough in a positive sentence, we are saying that the size in the case of the first sentence and the width in the case of the second sentence, those dimensions are good. We don't need to change any of them. But when we use the negative followed by an adjective and then enough, we're saying that we need more, okay, of something. In this case, the building isn't quiet enough. What we want is not more noise. What we want is more quiet. We want the building to be quieter, right? The buses aren't fast enough, which means that the buses are too slow. So what we need is for the buses to be faster, okay? So that is the use of enough. We have to distinguish between an affirmative enough and a negative structure using enough, which means insufficient. If I say the building isn't quiet enough, it's because I have too much noise. If I say that the buses aren't fast enough, it's because the buses are too slow and I need them faster. Okay? Okay, so there you have it. Evaluation with adjectives. To plus adjective and adjective plus enough. They're different, okay, because they express different things. What you need to remember is number one, the use of how you use them, and number two, the structure. How do you structure them correctly? Number two, evaluating quantities. Moving from feelings to physical inventory. So we're now going to evaluate using nouns, es decir, sustantivos, ¿verdad? Okay. Here we have a different structure. Okay? While when we are using adjective, enough always goes after the adjective. In the case of a noun, when we are working with nouns, we have a switch. We have to place enough first and then the noun. Okay? You have to remember that. When we are working with adjectives, the adjectives goes first and then enough. When we are working with nouns, enough goes first and then you place the adjective. Okay? So used when we talk about quantity. For example, there aren't enough buses. Enough first, buses is the noun. Next, there aren't enough parking spaces. Enough first, followed by the noun. There aren't enough trees in the city. Enough first, followed by the noun. There aren't enough metro stations. Enough first, followed by the noun. Okay? So, and repeat again. When we have an adjective, enough goes after. When I have a noun, enough goes before. At the end, we're expressing the same idea, okay? We're expressing the same idea. The only difference is the words we're using. In the case of the adjective, we're describing a situation. In the case of the nouns, we're talking about quantities directly, about objects directly. Okay. Another thing that we have to pay attention to is the use of many and much. Okay. It's the same idea of two. Remember two? From a couple of slides before, we use to followed by an adjective. When we have a countable adjective, or in this case, not adjective, a countable noun, we have to use many. Remember that we use many for countable nouns, and we normally use much for uncountable nouns. So when I want to say that we have too many of a countable noun, I have to use too many, right? Too many, which means I have more than enough. For example, there are too many cars. That means that I have more than necessary. There are too many motorcycles in the city. That means that I have more motorcycles than necessary. Okay? And I am using too many because I am talking about nouns in plural. And I am saying that we have too much of that. The same thing happens with non-countable nouns or uncountable nouns. If I have too much traffic, which is an uncountable noun, I have to use too much. If I have noise, which is another uncountable noun, I have to use too much as well. So we use too much for uncountable nouns and too many for countable nouns. Okay? When we want to say that we have an excess, that we have too much or too many, that we have more than necessary. Okay? So we have this one, enough plus noun, and we have too many and too much to talk about an excess. Is that clear?
Yes, teacher, clear.
Okay. Okay. So now we finished with comparing adjectives and evaluating with nouns. Now we're going to compare with adjectives. Okay, so here we use the famous structure as. Okay, this structure as you can see here in the picture, is to talk about two things that are exactly the same. Okay, when we use this as is to say that two things are exactly the same. In the case of this image, what it is implying is that Santiago and Santo Domingo have the same weight. Okay, but let's look for a more real example. So, this street is as busy as the other one. That means that both streets share the same amount of traffic or people. They're exactly the same. My new apartment is as comfortable as the old one. That means that both apartments share the same level of comfort. Okay? They share the same level of comfort. That means that they're not different. They're the same in terms of their comfort. Santiago is as beautiful as Santo Domingo means that Santiago and Santo Domingo share the same level of beauty. That Santiago is beautiful, but Santo Domingo is also beautiful. And they are both at the same level. They share the same level of beauty. They're not different in terms of beauty. In other words, they're exactly the same in that sense. So as you can see, we have to place as, and in the middle an adjective. We place as, and in the middle an adjective. And that is the structure that we have to follow every time we use as. Okay? Okay. When we have the opposite, and two objects are not exactly the same, we have to add not, because now we want to say the opposite. When we were seeing the other examples, we were using only as plus adjective plus as, because we were talking about that those objects share the same level of something, right? But here we're using not, which means that is the opposite. They are not exactly alike. For example, this area is not as safe as the city center. That means that this area is more dangerous than the city center. Okay? The opposite. The new building is not as big as the old one. Here we have the not. So that means that the new building is smaller than the old one. So they are not exactly the same. So when we use as in affirmative, using the affirmative structure, we are saying that both structures share the same qualities. Or whatever the adjective we're using, they share that exactly alike. But in the case of not as plus adjective plus as, we're saying that they're different. They're not exactly alike. Is that clear?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. And the last one is comparing nouns. Comparing nouns. Okay. So here we have, as we saw in the other case with too many and too much, here we have the version of the countable nouns, but now using many and using much. As you can imagine, we're talking about many for countable nouns and much for uncountable nouns. The same thing. But instead of using too many or too much, we're using as many and as much. Because here we're saying that we are sharing something. These nouns share something. Okay? So, if I say, for example, that Santo Domingo Santo Domingo has as many buses as Santiago, I am saying that both Santiago and Santo Domingo have the same amount of buses. So they are exactly alike in that sense. Okay? If I say Santo Domingo has as much noise or as much pollution as Santiago, I am saying that both Santiago and Santo Domingo share the same level of pollution. In that sense, they are exactly alike. Okay? It's the same idea. The only difference is that I'm using many for a countable noun and I am using as much for a non-countable noun. But as you can see, we have the same dynamic in both cases. Okay? Here we have the negative. Obviously, that is possible in all of those structures. We don't have as many buses as before. That means that before we had more buses. This city doesn't have as many parks as other cities. That means that this city has less parks, or in this case, fewer parks, because it's a countable now, fewer parks than other cities. We don't have as much traffic as before, which means that before we had more traffic. And this neighborhood doesn't have as much pollution as downtown, which means that downtown has more pollution than this neighborhood. Here we're using the negative structure to evaluate something, okay? But as we used Here, the negative, we can also say it in a positive way. We have as many buses as before, so it's the same. The city have as many parks as other cities, right? So is the use of these structures will depend on what you're trying to say. What is that you're trying to say? What is what you're trying to communicate? Okay. Okay, and here we have the summary of all the structures, right? To plus adjective or adjective plus enough, right? Not as plus adjective plus as, or enough plus noun, or too much, too many plus noun, or not as many, much plus noun plus as. Okay, this is the summary of those structures. Okay, so with that being said, here we have these exercises. We have to use these structures in parentheses and we have to add these structures here. Okay, we have to find a way of saying it, of saying this, of maintaining the same idea of the sentence, but using the word here in parentheses. For example, the first sentence says the house is 20 miles from downtown. That's far, right? That's far. So if I want to say the same thing using to, I would say something like the house is too far from downtown. The house is too far from downtown. And I am saying exactly the same because 20 miles from downtown and too far are expressing the same idea, right? So I'm going to do that with all of the other sentences, okay? I have to express, I repeat, the same idea, but using the words in parentheses. That will require, in some cases, that I rearrange certain elements in the sentences, and sometimes I have to add another element into the sentence to make it more cohesible or coherent. That's number one. Number two, here we have to choose the opposite. So we have these adjectives: convenient, cramped, dangerous, big, bright, modern, quiet, and cheap. And we have to choose from the box the opposites of these adjectives. Number three, here we have an easy exercise. We have to rewrite these sentences and find another way to say each sentence using not enough or too. So we have to rewrite each sentence using one of these two, or not enough or too. Okay? Simple. Here we have an example, right? The house is too expensive. Well, because here we're using too, I have to use in the other sentence what? Not enough. So the house isn't cheap enough, right? Isn't cheap enough, which is the same as too expensive. Here we have another exercise where we have to practice the place of the adjective and the nouns when it comes to enough. So enough comes after adjectives, right? But before nouns. So we have two structures with enough. Adjective plus enough, or enough plus noun. So here you have to place enough where it should be, okay? For example, the first sentence says the apartment isn't comfortable. Comfortable is an adjective. So that means that enough goes after comfortable. In the case of the second one, we have there aren't bedrooms, right? Bedrooms is a noun. So enough goes before. So the sentence would say there aren't enough bedrooms. Easy peasy. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let's continue. Let's move on to our second topic. Make a wish. Make a wish. So we use the word wish when we're talking about things we want but we can't have. Okay? It's only something that I wish. For example, I wish I won the lottery. I wish I had a Porsche. I wish I didn't have to work. Those are wishes, right? When I say I wish I won the lottery, it's only a wish. It's a wish because I can have it, at least at the moment. In the case of the lottery, no one controls the lottery. No one knows what numbers are going to come up. So we can only wish. The same thing happens with I wish I didn't have to work. That is only a wish because now I'm working and tomorrow I will have to work again and next Monday I will be working because I wish, but it's not a reality. It's only something that I wish. Okay, it's un deseo. I wish, like Aladino. Aladino, you remember Aladino? And y la lámpara, he had a genie inside the lamp, so he only had to rub it, and the genie came out, and he asked for something. So that's those are cartoons, those are animations. That is not reality. Here we only wish, and sometimes those wishes come true. Because maybe I say now, I wish I didn't have to work, and maybe in the future I won't have to work because I will be rich enough not to work. Or maybe I say, I wish I had a Porsche, which is a car, a 911 Porsche, and maybe in 20 years I will have it, but I don't know. So it's only a wish. So is that clear? The wish.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see the different structures that we have with wish. By the way, we have this conversation, I wish I could, which we're going to read in our next class. Okay. So pay attention to this. This is really fun. Okay. For me, this is one of the funnier topics that we have here. Okay. So we use wish when reality is different from what we want. We use wish when reality is different from what we want. Okay? That's why we use wish, or the reason we use wish. Okay, so we have different meanings depending on the tense that we use with wish. Pay attention to this because in this case you have all the tenses together. Okay, so the first one, a present wish or present wishes. So when we want to talk about something in the present that we want to change or we want to be different, we use wish plus past tense. Okay, we use wish plus past tense to talk about something in the present that we want to be different. Okay? We need to remember that even though we use the past tense, the meaning is about now, the present. Okay? This might be confusing because I am saying that we use wish plus past tense to talk about the present. Yes. We never, ever use wish with the present tense. Never. Okay? We always use wish with a past tense, with a past perfect, or with would or could, but never with a present tense structure. In English, we don't do that. That's the way they talk. Okay, so here we have, for example, let's talk about my real situation. I don't have my own apartment. That's my reality. I don't have my own apartment. And I wish something. What would that be? Well, I wish I had, past tense. You can see that? I wish I had my own apartment. because I don't have an apartment. So my wish is that I want to have an apartment. So I wish I had, past tense. So as you can see, this structure is in one tense and this structure is another tense. I wish is always in present simple, okay? But after wish, we always have a different tense. In this case, we are using past tense because we're talking about a present reality that we want to be different. Okay? Let's continue. That's number one. Number two, we also have wish plus could. When we use wish plus could, we use wish plus could to talk about ability, to talk about an ability or possibility that we don't have now. Okay, let's see an example. For example, I can't move out. I can't move out. I live with my parents, but I can't move out because I'm a minor, because I don't have the money, because it is too expensive. For whatever reason, I can't move out. But I wish that I had that ability to move out. So I say, I wish I could move out. Remember that could, in some contexts, is like the past of can't. That's the reason why we can use it here. Okay? So, I want the ability or possibility to move out, but I can't right now. So, that's my wish. I wish I could move out. Could. Another wish for a possibility. I wish I could speak English better. That's an ability that I wish I had, but I don't have it. So I wish I could. Or I wish I could travel more. Those are possibilities. I wish I could have that ability to travel more. Okay, so we use could to talk about abilities that we don't have and we wish we would have it. Number three, we also use wish with the past of the verb to be. But in this case, we are going to use the verb to be only using where. Okay? After wish, pay attention, English usually uses where for all pronouns. Remember that the past of the verb to be is I was, you were, he was, she was, it was, we were, they were, right? That is the past of the verb to be. But when we are using the past of the verb to be for a hypothetical situation, to talk about a hypothetical situation, we use where in all the pronouns. So in this particular case, the structure is different. It's I wear, you wear, he wear, she wear, it wear, we wear, they wear. So all the pronouns, when we are talking about hypothetical situations, are going to use the same where. Are going to use where in all of them. Okay? If I want to say that I don't like my size, I wish I were taller, I say I wish I were taller. I don't say I wish I was taller. So, I wish I were taller. Okay? Because I am not talking about something that I can actually change. I'm talking about a hypothetical situation. And in English, we use where for those situations. Okay? I have to say that Americans don't always respect that rule, and they sometimes use was in those structures, but you can't follow their example because when you are being evaluated or you are taking a test, they expect you to use where when you're talking about hypothetical situations. Here we have it. For example, life is difficult, right? That's the real situation. Life is difficult. What's your wish? Well, I wish it were. You see, it were easier. Or I wish I were taller. I con were. She wishes she were rich. As you can see here, remember that I said before that I wish, the first structure, is always in present simple. As you can see here, because we're using she, a third person singular, we have es at the end. She wishes. You see? The first structure of the wish structure is always in present simple. You have to remember that, okay? After that, after this structure, here you will have always a past tense structure, okay? And the last one, wish plus would. We use wish plus would when we want someone to change their behavior. Behavior is comportamiento, okay? So, let's see an example. My parents won't stop worrying about me. That's a behavior, right? Well, I wish to change that. Well, I wish they would stop worrying about me. Okay? So when we want someone to change, when we have that wish, that we wish that our son or our daughter change his or her behavior, we can say, I wish he would stop disobeying me. That's something you wish. And because it's about behavior, we use would. I wish it would stop raining, and I wish you would listen to me. It means that it is raining and it won't stop. And in the second one, he doesn't listen to you and you wish he would. You wish he would listen to you. Okay? So, okay, this is the rule. Something important. A grammar trap. We usually don't use would for ourselves. What that means is we don't say, I wish I would be rich. Okay? We don't use would for ourselves. Okay? If we are talking about ourselves, we use were. I wish I were rich. Okay? And a summary, here we have a summary. Which plus past tense, present situation we want to change. I wish I had a car. Wish plus could, ability we don't have. I wish I could travel. Wish plus were, hypothetical state. I wish it were easier. And wish plus would, someone's behavior. I wish he would call. Okay? And that's it. Any questions? Any doubts about wish? I told you it's a fun topic. Is that clear, guys?
Teacher,
Tell me, Saoni.
any question? Yo lo puedo decir en español. Witches, se utiliza solamente para tercera persona.
No, usamos wish para todos los pronombres. I wish.
No, wish, pero y witches presente.
Exacto, wishes, como está en presente la estructura, la vamos a usar para la tercera persona del singular, porque es lo que toca. He wishes, she wishes, it wishes. Pero los demás pronombres eran normal, ¿verdad? Porque él está en presente simple. I wish, you wish. He wishes, she wishes, it wishes, we wish, they wish. ¿Alguna otra pregunta? Bien. Entonces, let's continue with the homework. So, here we have this exercise. We have to change this exercise to the wish structure. We have to look carefully to the structure in order to pull it off, to do it right. For example, my mother doesn't like my girlfriend. If my mother doesn't like my girlfriend, my wish is that my mother liked my girlfriend, right? So I have to place my structure, I wish, right? She, the pronoun, because I'm talking about my mother, is a she, right? And because this sentence is in present simple, I only have to pass or use the past tense structure. I wish she liked my girlfriend. Easy peasy. Number two, my girlfriend is too short to be a model. Okay? In this case, we're using she. Another possibility is to use I, because in this case, he is saying that she wishes, because he doesn't wish that she were taller. It's she who wishes that. Okay, so here he says she wishes, third person singular, she were taller because she's too short. So her wish is the opposite. If you are too short, it's because you want to be taller. Okay, and so on. Here we have to look at the images and identify what is that person wishing. So when we look at this image, he is obviously sick. So he wish he were healthy. We're going to use the first person singular to structure these sentences. I wish I were healthy, right? Here we have to choose one of the two options that we have down here. And here we have to rewrite these sentences and find another way to say each sentence using the words given. So using the words in parentheses, we have to find a way of saying the same idea. And that's it. So in our next class, our speaking topic is going to be about used to, the first topic we saw at the beginning of this course. So we're going to talk about your childhood memories. Okay? We're going to talk about your childhood memories. Here we have find someone who, but we don't have the space, right, to do this. So what we're going to do is that you are going to tell me a little bit about your childhood memories. Things that you used to do when you were a child. But I don't want sentences. Okay? Like, I used to play this, I used to play this. No, I want a narrative. For example, when I was a child, I used to play baseball. We normally played baseball in the park. Um, um, we normally play baseball in the park, and we play it in the afternoon after class. You see, I have to add more elements because I know that you can do a sentence saying I used to play, but I want you to structure a small narrative. Okay, to structure a small narrative, like if you were telling me, imagine you are telling me about your childhood memories, that you are having a conversation about that, a simple conversation about that, and you are elaborating like you would do in Spanish. Well, when I was a child, I used to play baseball with my friends. We normally got together after school, and we played for hours. Normally on weekends, I used to sleep a lot because I had a lot of homework during the week, and weekends were my only time to sleep as long as I wanted to. Something like that, to structure a little narrative. Is that clear? Yes? Okay. Okay, guys. This was a silent class. So that will be all for tonight. I will send the pictures in a moment to the WhatsApp group. This class will be available tomorrow, and see you again next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Goodbye, good night,
Night, teacher.
good night.